neck was bloody.
A neighbor in shock.
It was like, what happened to you? He was like, can you call the police? Dude just stabbed me with a hatchet.
The attack that sent a Seattle man to the emergency room.
It would be really heartbreaking.
Farmers desperate to keep their fields alive, cut off from federal help. The growers already struggling that are now running low on cash.
And now it's not just farmers facing funding cuts.
It's frustrating that our state has not figured out how to support working families.
On the state level, parents, nurses, and teachers head to the Capitol with a plea to lawmakers.
Starting the work week off on a rainy note, especially over top of King County today. We're going to take a bit of a break on Tuesday, but as we make the transition towards spring, more wintry weather is moving in. We'll track it together.
I live here since August, and I'm about to be moving.
Neighbors in shock after learning about a hatchet attack this weekend in Seattle's First Hill neighborhood. Tonight, a 50-year-old man's in jail. This was the scene yesterday just after that attack inside the Cambridge Apartments on Union Street. Good evening. I'm Joyce Taylor.
I'm Greg Copeland. King 5 Sebastian Robertson is live from the King County Jail tonight with the latest. Sebastian.
A judge just a couple of hours ago ruled that man will stay in custody, held on $2 million bail. We are not naming him as he has yet to be formally charged. Those charges expected to be filed as soon as Wednesday.
Police swarmed the Cambridge Apartments Sunday afternoon after a fight between two people on the 10th floor.
I saw my friend come out the other apartment, which was next door to where we was all going, and his neck was bloody, and we was like, what happened to you? He was like, can you call the police? Dude just stabbed me with a hatchet.
The injuries deemed life-threatening. The police report describes a cut so deep the muscle tissue was exposed. A 34-year-old man was taken to the hospital while a 50-year-old was put in handcuffs. Officers found a 12-inch hatchet under a mattress in one of the units.
When you have allegations like this of using a hatchet against an acquaintance, that's one where we think that high bail is appropriate.
Ask the court to set bail in the amount of $2 million.
Monday afternoon, the suspect waived his right to appear.
Due to the nature of the injuries and the fact that they've been designated as possibly life-threatening, I believe that a higher bail is appropriate in this case.
Meanwhile, those who call the apartment complex home are shaken by an act of violence.
It's scary.
Could have taken a life.
It really is scary because I'm a resident here. I'm not from here, so coming from out of state and coming to here, you're thinking it's different, and the violence is still following you all the way around. So it's just, you have to stay on point. You have to stay on your toes.
According to the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, they are recommending charges of first-degree assault. We'll find out Wednesday if he's held on those charges and what could come next in this case. Back to you.
New at 6:30, we are waiting to learn what was stolen from the Seattle Fire Department's joint training facility over the weekend. Seattle police say somebody used the department's own vehicle and axe to break into that building on Saturday. 3 trailers on the property were targeted. The department is now going through its inventory to see what was taken or damaged.
New at 6:30, the King County Sheriff's Office is making some big changes to how it responds to emergency calls because of the budget. It's reducing staff in its north and southeast precincts and in areas around Redmond Ridge, Fairwood, and Falls City in unincorporated King County. Now, deputies will only be dispatched after alarms are verified by the alarm companies or there's video or audio evidence. They will not respond to crashes unless someone is injured or the accident is blocking roads or private property. Deputies will answer calls associated with hit and runs or impairment. This is similar to what Seattle police are doing. Officers are no longer being dispatched to burglary alarms from monitoring companies unless there's supporting evidence. The department says that decision stems from too many calls versus budget constraints.
Parents, teachers, and nurses worried about cuts to state services rallied on the steps of the state capitol this afternoon. The rally comes on the eve of a big budget announcement.
Olympia Bureau Chief Drew Mickelson explains what's coming and what some are concerned about tonight.
All year we've been hearing about a budget deficit of anywhere between $12 to $15 billion. Tomorrow we're supposed to get an updated forecast of what that number actually could be. Whatever it is expected to be a big deficit, and that has folks bracing for cuts.
They're fired up for those who they say need the most help.
Folks with disabilities, the elderly, children. We all say we care about these things, right? All of them will say they care about it. Well, then put your money where your mouth is, literally.
From a grandmother worried about childcare.
It's frustrating that our state has not figured out how to support working families.
To a former county jail inmate.
I was addicted to drugs and incarcerated.
Bronnie Lemke was also pregnant.
I had him on methadone pretty much, and so I was one of the lucky ones who he was not born with any side effects or anything.
But state services paid for her son Ashton's child care while she battled addiction and attended school, all thanks to the state.
We were able to grow together. He got to start learning his social emotional learning while I got to get my high school diploma, and now I'm getting my college associate's degree.
These demonstrators are worried funding for state programs could be reduced or eliminated in looming budget cuts. Some Democratic leaders have talked about raising taxes.
Look, we're not going to tax our way out of this thing. Not going to happen.
But Governor Bob Ferguson says that should be the state's last resort. He's proposed cuts across state services, from child care to food banks and universities.
Lawmakers are deciding this week whether or not to make devastating cuts to the services that we all rely on.
Those who could lose their jobs or have relied on state benefits before don't want to think about what an all-cuts budget would mean for them or their families.
I would probably just be sitting at home living off of other types of state funding, not bettering myself or my family.
So that crowd was calling for new taxes. One of the budget writers was speaking here, Senator Noel Frame, and she said that crowd would be, quote, pleased with the budget proposals coming out next week. Of course, Governor Bob Ferguson has the final say. No budget can pass without his signature. In Olympia, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
U.S. Senator Patty Murray says the state's budget problems could be made worse with potential cuts coming from the federal government. Senator Murray says it's time to sound the alarm over proposed cuts to Medicaid. She visited the state capitol today along with medical providers and patients who rely on Medicaid services. Those could be reduced under President Trump's proposals. One pediatrician said she routinely helps children with life-threatening illnesses who cannot afford care without Medicaid.
I worry about their coverage. They are alive right now due to Medicaid access to care. And I worry about what would happen with them. They would not be alive, much less thriving.
Senator Murray says 20% of the state's population rely on Medicaid assistance.
I feel sad every day when I think about it.
And now small farms in Western Washington are worried tonight. The federal funding, many of them rely on, could soon be cut. A successful program that helps women and immigrants start small farms is now on the chopping block. North Bureau Chief Eric Wilkinson explains the fallout from Skagit County.
Kelsey Richards started farming because she wanted to be part of a sustainable solution for America's food future.
We are watching our world change in ways that are pretty scary to witness.
She tends to a modest 2-acre plot of Skagit County land provided by Viva Farms.
Yeah, I don't know how we would do it without Viva.
Viva Farms helps people who want to be farmers, especially women and minorities, achieve that goal by providing training, equipment, and land. Over the past 15 years, Viva has helped thousands of aspiring farmers, launching 90 family farms. Less than 10% of America's farms are run by women. And while more than 80% of farm workers nationwide are Latino, less than 10% own the farms themselves. Those inequalities are what Viva Farms is working to correct, so Spanish-speaking people can move from toiling in the fields to owning them.
That population has the experience and has the fortitude to be part of our next generation of farmers. And they're here, and we support them.
But in January, Viva got word from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that 70% of its funding is now frozen. 3 major grant programs totaling $5.5 million. That money goes to support 35 small startup farms and 55 students enrolled in an 8-month training program beginning in April.
Unless we get those federal funds back or the community at large comes alongside of us and supports us, we will be laying people off and shutting down programs and eventually going out of business.
I feel sad every day when I think about it.
Back in her field, Kelsey continues her work, hoping she's around to see it bear fruit come harvest time.
It's just undermining the strength of our food system, and it's undermining small businesses. It's frustrating, and yeah, it's just frustrating.
As it stands right now, Viva only has enough money on hand to keep the farms operating for a few more months. After that, nobody knows. In Skagit County, Eric Wilkinson, King 5 News.
Brett Jones, the superintendent of Seattle Public Schools, is stepping down in September. His decision just 1 month after he accepted a contract extension with the district. SPS says Jones' decision comes, quote, after much reflection and more desire to spend time with his family. His final day will be September 3rd. Jones has been the superintendent of the Seattle schools since May of 2021. No word on when the district hopes to name a replacement.
An Orting man known as a gentle giant was shot to death in front of his own home with his own gun. Mike Compton died while doing what came natural to him, protecting the people he loved. More than a decade later, his murder is still having an impact on the people of Orting. King 5's Steve Solis has this edition of Unsolved Northwest.
Mike's association with this community was huge.
Just about anybody could enjoy being with him, feel safe next to him.
I think I got a phone call from somebody that said Mike had been shot.
11 years was a long time ago, and they couldn't solve it.
It's still the talk of the town after 11 years, but not everybody wants to talk about it. Mike's widow, Nikki, she's trying to put it behind her. But his sisters want people to remember who he truly was.
Everybody loved him.
He was genuinely a good guy.
Hi, I'm Lynn Doherty, and I'm Michael's sister. He was a community guy. He loved to help his wife run the Red Hat days and, wore that goofy hat that looks so dumb on him, but that was just Mike.
He was a gentle giant. He would protect me as a young girl. Not that I always needed protecting, but I knew that if there was anything that happened, Mike would be there for me.
He was just a great brother. He was, he was a great son, and I'm sure Nikki would say he was a great husband. They were soulmates. The tragic part is that was taken away from her.
Good. I'm Detective Sergeant Brian Byerly. I'm one of the original investigators on this case. A murder in Orting is rare. It's a small, generally quiet town.
Just after 3 this morning, police found the body of the 53-year-old in his front yard.
So things like this don't really happen down there.
Just kind of dumbfounding. And then to think that it was my brother that was murdered is pretty devastating.
The crime itself happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. Mike Compton was out. It appears that he may have startled a prowler or something in his front yard.
He hears somebody in his garage, and he's going to go right to his gun cabinet.
His wife, Nikki, called the police, called 911, and said, there's something wrong with my husband out in the front yard. Orting PD shows up, finds Mike in his night coat in the front yard, and he's dead from a gunshot wound.
It's just a tragedy. And then for poor Nikki to wake up, Mike's not there. She goes out the front door and to run into her husband like that, it had to have been horrible.
Mike was a big man, and he definitely was a tough guy. He was not one that you would take down very easily.
I've been spending a lot of time in Orting, drive through town, and I wonder why there isn't a sign up that says, "We haven't found these people yet."
I know that law enforcement is trying their best, but I think there is something to the fact that when something is unsolved, you can't put it to rest, really.
To be honest, it's really frustrating. Thinking back over a lot of cases over the last 30 years, this doesn't seem like the kind of case that should be 11 years old. I'm at the end of my, starting to look down to the end of my career, and I don't want to leave without this thing being done. I think it would honestly drive me crazy in personal life.
Somebody knows something. It's unfathomable to me that somebody is out there that knows something.
And over the years, still this underlying thing in that community when you go down there. It's settled, but it's not settled. And people still talk about it.
Detective Byerly is right. For some, talking about the case helps keep it at the forefront. But for others, talking about it helps process the pain that still lies deep, deep inside.
When somebody touches your life, and they're a part of your life for decades, right? It becomes part of your life. And then when you lose that, it's hard. It's difficult to accept that there's someone that has been taken from you. His family. His family. Mike was awoken to his garage door opening. He armed himself and went out. He got someone, and then somebody else was with that someone. Mike gave them mercy and was shown none. It's hard. It's hard to take.
To learn more about this case, to get updates on past stories and more, subscribe to receive updates from our Unsolved team. Text the word UNSOLVED to 206-448-4545 to sign up.
Really sad and very unexpected and sudden.
A beloved vendor who made his livelihood at Pike Place Market has passed away. How the market community is coming together to help the owner of a longtime produce stand heal.
Tariff tensions between the U.S. and Canada putting financial strains on our timber industry. The Public Lands Commissioner weighs in on whether more trees could be cut down in the evergreen state to make up for the cost.
And we saw some heavy rain, even some lightning over top of the Seattle Metro for the commute tonight. We're going to see that taper off and calm down, but more weather is on the way as we approach spring. We'll track it together coming up.